The screen flickered, a static hum breaking the stillness of the dimly lit room. Thomas leaned closer, his heart racing as the eerie graphics of Needlemouse danced across the vintage monitor. The game, a relic of forgotten horror, had resurfaced on an obscure forum, its unsettling reputation tugging at forgotten fears. He had heard the whispers, the cursed game that ended friendships and left players haunting their memories long after the game powered down. Thomas had always chased the thrill of fear. A collector of rare horror games, he had long sought after the infamous Needlemouse. Legend had it, playing it could unveil bizarre horrors, not just confined to the screen. Friends warned him, but curiosity overcame caution. The glimmer of nostalgia for 8-bit terror beckoned like an old friend from the dark corners of his childhood. The game's intro was disconcertingly inviting, vibrant colors awash in an unsettling undertone. Characters danced across the screen, showing a twisted version of childhood glee. "Press start," the screen beckoned, and without hesitation, he complied, plunging into the nostalgia-laced horror. The world warped into an unsettling landscape, a warped town, disfigured houses shrouded in fog, and the sinister backdrop of an ever-present moon watching with unblinking dread. As the story unfolded, Thomas followed a character oddly reminiscent of a cursed childhood friend. Each level escalated bizarrely. Static sounds warped into distorted whispers as they echoed in the empty room. He could almost hear them behind him, shadows creeping closer as paranoia gripped him. The further he progressed, the more reality felt distorted, his pulse echoing the glitchy soundtracks that intruded upon his senses. In the game's climax, it unraveled a sinister truth. Needlemouse was not just a game, but an entity, an unsatisfied spirit latching onto the players. It fed on their fears, twisting memories into nightmares. The screen flickered violently as Thomas fought against waves of monstrous memories, the graphics glitching, showing shapes reminiscent of his past. A figure cloaked in darkness, reminiscent of his childhood fear, his old friend Charlie. With a final push, Thomas reached the end. The screen displayed cryptic messages, warnings warning against the entity's embrace. Hindered by his disbelief, he scoffed, snatching the controller. But just as he hit the replay button, the screen blinked. "No more," it declared. His laughter turned to silence when the house dimmed, shadow budos creeping along the walls. His phone buzzed, lighting up the room momentarily. A message flashed from an unknown number. "Remember Charlie?" It gripped Thomas's heart, raw memories clawing their way up. Those childhood games turned sinister, the arguments, the day Charlie vanished without a trace. The horror of realizations crashed upon him. What was once a playful partnership had twisted into an unending nightmare. In the background, the game continued to play on, showing scenes of their friendship laced with sorrow and betrayal. A loud crash from the other room sent a jolt through him. Trepidation pooled in his gut. The air thickened as he ventured toward the sound, every step echoing with a sense of dread. As he turned, he saw a shadow pass by the window, a flash of fur, a glint of a familiar figure that sent his blood running cold. Charlie's laughter echoed, warped and terrifying. The walls whispered, "Join us," and Thomas felt the game's pull, tiresome yet familiar, beckoning him to a dark reunion where reality and illusion mingled. The screen crackled, and suddenly, everything went black. The only illumination was the whisper of "game over," mingling with the distant laughter of a long-lost friend. Outside, the moon hung heavy in the sky, and as silence enveloped the night, the doors creaked ominously, hinting a new player lurked just around the corner. Needlemouse. O horror analogico de Creepypasta Esquecida. The air grew colder, an unnatural chill creeping along his spine as Thomas stood in the doorway, the shadows whispering. The laughter, that haunting echo steeped in nostalgia, yet laced with malice, repeated as if teasing him, taunting him with memories wrapped in cruel machinations. He turned back toward the flickering screen. The game was still running, and the characters leered, a twisted parody of innocence. Thomas felt the nausea rise in his throat, memories of Charlie swirling like a maelstrom in his mind. They had played countless hours together as children, racing through labyrinthine constructs of pixelated horror, only to end the night with laughter. But the day of Charlie's disappearance was always shrouded in darkness, overshadowed by an air of guilt. Had he pushed too hard? Had he drawn him into a darkness that swallowed everything? "Join us," the wall seemed to chant, the phrase punctuated with a cacophony of childlike giggles that turned sinister in the echoing void. As he stepped away from the screen, cradling the controller as if offering his very soul, the whispers escalated. "Come play with me, Thomas." He turned toward the noise that had pulled him from his stupor, heart racing, and stepped gingerly into the hallway. Floorboards groaned beneath his weight, and the air felt charged, each breath a battle against the heaviness wrapping around his lungs. He reached the living room, eyes darting wildly for movement, for a sign of life. But only shadows greeted him. An oppressive silence descended, but then he heard it again. The laughter, now accompanied by a soft scratching sound, as if something furry were pawing at the door. He fumbled for the light switch, fingers trembling, but all that greeted him was a flickering bulb overhead. And then the scratching stopped. Time seemed to stretch as he stood paralyzed with fear. "Charlie," he called out, the name a whisper that hung in the air before dissipating. Just then, the door swung open with a creak, unveiling a darkened corridor lined with shadows that refused to recede. "Come and play, Thomas," came the voice again, imitating Charlie's chirpy tone, but tinged with something grotesque, barely recognizable, like an echo from hell itself. He couldn't tell anymore if it was a memory or a trap. The voice twisted, warped, like the game mocking him on the screen. In a moment of reckless abandon, Thomas stumbled back into the room. Before he could rationalize his panic, he snatched the controller once more, desperately hoping to break the game's grip on his reality. But the screen pulsed ominously, the words, "Start again," flashing repeatedly. The lights dimmed with each pulse, and in his panic, he pressed the button. The graphics morphed violently, and suddenly, the game transported him back to the very beginning. Chubby figures danced eerily as the intro music, "Birthday Party," cheerful, yet hauntingly jarring, filled the room. He sat dumbfounded as memories entwined with the distorted visuals. Each scene a vicious reminder of the childhood they shared, of laughter and tears twined together like a noose tightening at his throat. "Nothing's changed," came the whisper from behind him. The shadows grew longer, creeping up the walls like tendrils, and though he couldn't bear to look, he felt its presence looming near. Finally, he detached himself from the screen and whipped around. Charlie stood there, but twisted, grotesque, eyes brimming with unnatural light. He wore the same clothes they had played in, but his face was a mask of anguish, a reflection of lost times that gnawed at Thomas's heart. "Why did you leave me?" Charlie's voice was a haunting echo of joy turned malignant, wrapping itself around Thomas like a serpent. "You didn't want to play our game anymore." "Charlie, I thought you died," Thomas stammered, mind racing with fragmented memories, hallucinations of that fateful day. The argument. Charlie's wild eyes, the thunderstorm that had engulfed that night. "Died," Charlie echoed, his laughter mingling with growls that bubbled beneath the surface, the sound breaking into a cacophonous symphony. "You think the game ends there? The cycle continues, my friend. We can be together forever. Just play along." Then the room trembled, the very structure groaning around them, as the chaos of the game consumed reality. Shadows warped into grotesque shapes, and every pixelated character he had faced now flooded his senses, swirling toward him like a tide of darkness, each one a manifestation of his regret. The door behind him slammed shut as Thomas pressed deeper into despair. "No," he murmured, shaking his head against the crashing waves of memories and remorse. "Join us," the whispers beckoned, growing louder, drowning out the last remnants of his sanity. With shaking hands, Thomas realized he was bearing witness to a reality twisted beyond recognition, a purgatory where betrayal and fear fused into a hunger for eternal play. The screen blipped again, reflecting the chaos engulfing him, and in that moment, he realized that this wasn't just a game. It was a trap, a vibrant web spun by an insatiable spirit, and he was its prey. As shadows churned around him, Thomas felt himself slip away. The world around him tinged with a monochromatic dread, a prisoner's reunion with responsibilities unfulfilled and reckoning looming. In those final moments, the screen of Needlemouse flared blindingly, the final message glaring back at him. Over. Try again. Darkness swallowed him whole as distant laughter echoed, mingling with the cries of all those entrapped within the walls of the screen. Outside, the moon hung heavy in the sky, and the air thickened, promising new horrors unfurling just beyond the veil, where the game always begins anew.